This morning, I want to come to you out of John chapter 4, the woman at the well. So I believe this unpacks something really powerful that as a church we can benefit from. Because we know about God, but there needs to be a transition of just knowing and doing. We need to really understand, because when you understand is when you actually apply. So John chapter 4, we're going to start in verse 6, and I'm going to read this. I'm going to read in some chunks, and then I'll break down what I feel like God's saying out of that. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired from the long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noontime. And they had just got done baptizing people. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. The woman was surprised for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You are a Jew, I am a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" And Jesus replied, "If you only knew the gift God has for you and who you were speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water." See, I feel like we know God has things to offer us. We know that through this covenant, through this promise, through his son that died, through his sacrifice on the cross, we know that there's things that are offered, but we fail to realize exactly what it is. See, Jesus is saying, "I just want a drink. I'm parched. I'm thirsty. I need something from you." And she's, "Well, why are you talking to me?" He said, Can you just listen? I just need a drink. I just want some water. And in fact, if you knew who I was, I have living water. I just want some regular water, but I have some living water. But I feel like why we create this difference, why we create this separation, is because we too often look at our differences instead of how Jesus has offered it to us. We look at it and say, "Well, I'm just fill in the blank. Well, my sin is it's just too much." Or my issues, God, they're really big, and I know what you're saying, but I see this difference. See, we're a lot like the Samaritan woman, where we come and we hear what God is saying, and we hear the word every Sunday, but we sit and we look at it through our personal lens of our differences. Well, God, I have this issue. Well, God, I have this problem. And God, I have this insurmountable thing in my life. Or God, you don't know the issues I'm going through. I couldn't really accept that. I heard somebody say this week, we know that we're forgiven, but how often do we actually act in that forgiveness? We'll walk around and say, "Well, I had this issue," and we'll walk around with our head down. And we do the same thing the Samaritan woman is. We look at the differences instead of looking at the offer. We look at all the wrong instead of looking at the right Jesus is trying to give us. It's right in front of us. Can I tell you that while Jesus was asking for a drink, that we actually need a drink of what he's got? I'm going to get to my point in a second. I'm excited. She said, "But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket." She said, "In this well, it's really deep. Where would you get this living water?" Like, I can just see her being like slick, responding. "Where would you even get this water? And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob, who would give us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed?" Now, I just want you to take a step back and really look at everything that's happening. Jesus, like the Son of God, Jesus, is at a well saying, I just get me a drink, please. She said, "Well, you're a Jew, and we're not supposed to talk." He said, "All right, look, I have living water. I just want a drink, lady. I just want a drink." It's like yesterday, I was at a wedding, and I walked up, I was like, "Hey, can I have a Sprite?" "Well, we're closed." "I just want a drink. I'm going to die." He said, "I just want a drink." And she responds and says, "Well, you don't even have a bucket to get water. The well's deep. Where would you get the water you're talking about? Jacob built it, and you think that your water would be greater than what Jacob had?" See, when I read this, I kind of read it through the context of like a 15-year-old teenager. Anybody encountered a 15-year-old teenager before? I see her looking at Jesus and be like, well, you didn't even have a bucket. Look, lady, I just want a drink. You didn't even have a bucket. Are you kidding me? Jesus, King of Kings, firstborn over all of creation. And the response is, I know you want water, but you don't even have a bucket. Like, she's just not getting this. She's not understanding what's actually happening to her. But I believe that this, at times, is a picture of our own lives. Man, Jesus has so many promises for us. Say, well, God, you know my finances are strapped, and you know that I can't tithe because, I'd miss out on my cell phone bill or my cable bill. And God, I know that you promised this, but you don't even have a bucket. And God, I know my emotional issues, and I know that I need to find peace in this, but you don't understand what I've gone through. You don't understand the brevity of it. You don't understand the weight of the situation that I've gone through. God said, I have all of this for you. I paid for it. I bought it. It's done. It's finished. I have it right here for you. I'm standing in front of you. The same situation. Saying, well, God, I know I have need of this. But instead of allowing him to do it, we'll throw our bucket into the water and simply look at it and be like, well, you don't even have a bucket to get the water for me, so I'll do it. I'll throw my bucket in. I'll reel it out. I'll get my water. I'll go home. I'll get my drink. And so often, this is the response that we have. You can fill in any blank. Well, I need. Fill it in with what you need from Christ. Fill it in with the lack that you feel that you have. And what so often occurs, instead of us going to Jesus when he's saying, I'm right here. I have a living water for you. I have something for you prepared and ready. And it's in my word. And I promised it for you. And I paid for it. And I did it. And it's done. And we look at him and say, well, I don't understand how you could do it, so I'll do it myself. Well, God, you don't even have a bucket, so let me throw mine in. Well, I don't understand how it could even happen, so I'm going to take care of it. She said, I have the tools, but you don't, God. I have the bucket, you don't. Whenever I get thirsty, I can fulfill it. And by the way, are you greater than the world and what it can offer? And I think this is the greatest thing we see as Christians. The greatest issue we run across is we have a decision to make. Is God our provider or is the world our provider? Because every time we throw that bucket into it and say, well, God, I know my need and I know it's promised, but I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to take care of my issue. I'll take care of the situation. Every time we take care of the situation, instead of resting in the promise of God, we're literally saying, well, I know what you have, but I don't believe you can do it for me, so let me do it. I trust that the world can take care of me. And that's why we'll see people, they'll take a raise for $1 an hour and only be able to come to Sunday service every other week. That's why we'll see a lady selling out for a man and not coming to church anymore, because they have something they want to be fulfilled. And for some reason, we don't think God can get it to us, so we'll take care of it on our own. Because for some reason, we've given the world such a great weight. We've given the world such a great opportunity to speak a falsity into our lives that it can fulfill and satisfy everything we need. I was talking to a young man not too long ago, and I believe he's got a call of God on his life, and we were talking, and I was letting him know, look, the only satisfaction is when you truly fulfill your purpose in Christ. See, you can have success in the world and still be completely unsatisfied. But if you want satisfaction, oh, by the way, just for a bonus, also success, it's only found in Jesus. But for some reason, as Christians, we don't believe that God can satisfy and bring success in our lives. So we create success on our own, thinking it will bring us satisfaction. But every time we get to that place, we got to walk back to the well, throw in our bucket, find something else, reel it back up, go home, pour our drink it, sit there for a little bit satisfied, and realize that it's not really what we thought it was, and have to walk back out, go to the well, throw it down in, toil and labor and do all of these things, all while God is saying, I have living water. But we're still looking, well, God, you don't even have a bucket. How could you get this to me? Well, you don't even have fill in the blank for your own thing. You don't even have it. I read this story and it just, oh my goodness, lady. It's Jesus. Have you seen what he did for other people? Have you seen what he took care of for the 5,000? Have you seen what he did? We look at it. Well, yeah, that's Jesus, but we look at it through our own lens. We're saying, well, God, what about me? I don't know how you could do it in my situation, and I'm happy for Bruce and Eileen, but what about me? And what about my situation? What about me personally? What does it look like for me? We get to this point where we believe our plans are greater than his plans, and that we can trust in the world enough to fulfill us for a little bit, but we fail to realize we got to keep going back. Like, we can look at a drug epidemic in Elmira and realize the church needs to step up and give them what they're really looking for. So you can down them all you want. You can trash them all you want. But once you realize they're searching for something and you have that answer, you have to get out of your seat and go bring it to them. They're searching for something. Anybody living in an amount of sin is looking for satisfaction. They're looking for something, and you have that something. But every time we try to do it on our own, or every time we turn to the world, literally we're this 16-year-old Samaritan woman with a little attitude. Well, God, you don't even have a bucket. Well, God, how could you even do it? Well, it's a really deep well, God. You don't understand how deep the well is, like he didn't create the earth. Well, and are you greater than the people before you? Well, yeah, he's Jesus. He is, yes. In fact, he is. We put so much trust in the world. I don't understand why, if we can trust him with our eternity, we can't trust him with our emotions. And if we can trust him with our eternity, we can't trust him with our finances. And if we can trust him with our eternity, we can't trust him with our struggles. I don't understand. If we can trust him for an eternity with him, why can't we trust him for a short thing here on earth? But what is it? See, we see this example throughout the Word, through and through. Look at Abraham. Did not God promise him Isaac? I'll give you a son. And it didn't happen in his timing. And it didn't happen in his expectations. And it didn't happen as soon as he wanted. So he went and created his Ishmael, which created a lot of promises, or a lot of mistakes and a lot of heartache. Can I tell you, we're a picture of Abraham every time we take a promise of God and try to make it happen in our own timing, in our own way. We might not see it. We might not see how it's going to be done. But if God has promised it, it's going to occur. Can we stop creating Ishmaels and receive the promise of God? That's what we run into. Jesus replied. And this is right after she's given him attitude. Well, God, you don't have a bucket, and it's really deep, and Jacob made it, and his people and his animals, like, well, duh, the water is greater than what was made for the animals, but I don't know. Jesus replied, anyone, still to this day, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. Jesus said, anybody who takes from this well of the world, anyone who dips their bucket down into this well, anyone who pulls it back up again, I promise you, you'll be thirsty again. You'll have to come back tomorrow. You'll have to come back next week. You'll have to come back next year. You'll have to come back next decade. You'll have to come back because you'll be thirsty again if you take what is being offered by the world. But, man, I love that word in the scripture. I love that simple three-lettered word, but. If you see the word but or if, I'm telling you, get ready because there's a promise coming. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It will become a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. She said, she went from attitudinal to non-attitudinal very quickly. She said, please, sir, give me this water. Then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water. I think we need to have the same revelation as this woman, the Samaritan woman, who said, God, can I have that water because I won't have to come back to the well anymore? God, what you're offering, this fresh bubbling spring, with this thing that's going to fulfill me and take care of me, God, I want it because I'm sick of coming back to the well. See, we have to get sick of going back to the well in order to really get to the spot to desire what God has for us. Is anybody sick and tired of going back to that well every single day, having to create your own prosperity, having to create your own joy, your own peace, your own happiness, your own fill in the blank? She had a revelation of, you know what? If I don't have to go back to it anymore, I can stay right here and have the joy and the peace and the love and the patience and the happiness and the goodness and the mercy that I already desire. I don't have to have it run out. God's going to keep it going in me. And when we can recognize that you don't have to go back to the wells of the world. You don't have to run back to that place. You don't have to step foot in that bar again. You don't have to go for another guy and a girl and get let down. You don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to visit those places anymore. You don't have to have your finances in the dump because you're going to the Lord. You don't have to do it anymore. And if you're sick of doing it, you can step up and say, well, God, I don't want to go to the well, so where's the spring? Where's the living water? Because I'm here and I'm willing and I desire it. It all begins in desire. It all starts with an earnest desire for the Lord. It starts and ends in your heart. If you want Jesus more than anything, if you want that more than anything, if you're ready for true satisfaction more than anything, that's where it starts. She said, give me this water because I'm sick of what I'm going around. You know what's great? It ties in even with the Old Testament. Isaiah 12 verse 3 says, therefore, another but statement, therefore, with joy, you will draw water from the springs of salvation. But with joy, you will draw water from the springs of salvation. See, every single thing you need is already found in what Jesus paid for. And can I tell you, to stop buying the lie that it's difficult, that it's hard, that it's something we have to really wrestle and fight for? The fight has already been completed. He's literally saying, with joy, you can receive these things. With joy, you can pull from my well of salvation. Not the well of the world, but the things I've stored up with you for you. With joy, you can pull them out. Fill in the blank for your own life, because everyone has something personal. But what is it in your life where you want to draw that from the joy of salvation? I'm telling you, everything we fall short of in following Jesus is something we already desire from him. So if it's in a man or a woman, it's in love and acceptance. If it's in alcohol, it's probably in peace or identity. We can run through the list of what people deem as sin and find what we're really looking for. But this promise throughout the Word of God, with joy, you will draw from the wells of salvation. With joy, you can have these things. With joy, you can draw it out. See, you will never draw what you need if you draw from the wells of the world. So can I tell you a really simple truth? We serve Jehovah Jireh, my provider. My provider. And if we fail to realize that he's my provider and you have to be your own provider, then you'll keep drawing from the wells of the world. And you can show up in church all day, every day, but if you fail to identify with him like that, then you'll keep going back to those wells and you'll keep getting frustrated because it's not what the word has promised, because you're not fulfilling what he's already spoken, that it's right there for you. We still have, see, Jehovah Jireh. That was Abraham, Genesis 22:14. But in New Testament, we still have that same promise in Matthew 6. It said, don't worry about where you sleep. Don't worry about what you eat. Don't worry about the clothes you wear. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things will be added unto you. See, This promise of provision is throughout the Word of God, and it's still true today, that we have an option to create our own or to take what God has already welled up for us. And the longer we take and do this on our own, the more frustrated we'll get with God. And I've seen so many people walk away from God because they found their answer in something else, while the whole time God is saying, I'm right here. I'm right here. And we respond with, well, you don't even have a bucket. Well, I don't understand how you could give me peace. Or I don't understand how I could have joy. Or I don't understand how my finances could work out. It's right there the whole time. The promise is right there the entire time. And I love how Jesus finishes this conversation with the woman. He says, go and get your husband. He's gotten her to a point. She says, I want it. I want this living water. I want this promise. I don't want to come back to the well. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the world. I'm sick of these things. And he throws the curveball. He says, well, go get your husband then. She said, well, Jesus, I don't have a husband. And he said, you're right. You don't have a husband. You've had 5 husbands. And the man you're living with, you're not married to. See, some people just felt some conviction. But can I tell you, when you open up to Jesus, he'll identify what you've drawn from the world. Because she was searching to fill a void. And it doesn't have to be 5 husbands and you're sleeping around with one. It can be alcohol. It can be whatever it is. Whatever you've drawn from the world. When you stand there and say, God, here it is. He can identify simply, easily what you've drawn from the world. See, it wasn't really about the water. It was about his desire to fulfill people. See, in the description of Jesus in Matthew 1:21, it says he came to save people. Which breaks down to sozo, or wholeness. Your mind, you will, your emotions. We're a trichotomous being, correct? So our spirit, our soul, and our body. He came to make all of those whole. He desires to fulfill you, but will remain unfulfilled as long as you make things happen outside of Jesus. It doesn't matter about the boy, the money, the status. It does not matter how far you can get without Jesus, because you're still just at the starting block. I think it's powerful. She had been with 5 husbands, which equals the number of grace. And she was sleeping with another man, which equals 6, which is the number of man, things that we've done on our own. And the 7th man she just encountered was God. And the next man she encounters is number 8. And number 8 biblically represents new beginnings. See, can I tell you, when you can come to Jesus and say, I'm sick of the well, he'll say, you know, I'm going to give you grace, and I'm going to take care of what you did on your own, and I'm going to show up on the scene, and when I do so, I'm going to give you an ability for a new season, for a new time, for a new thing, because I don't want you going around what the world's got. I have something special for you, stored up. See, can we stop looking at him and saying, well, you don't have what I need, and say, God, I know I've done it on my own. I know I've done things. I know I've tried to fulfill it. I know I've purposed it, but I'm sick of doing it. So here it is. I need your grace. I know that I got an issue, but Lord, please be here. And when you can come to him like that, man, I'm telling you, he's going to say, here is everything. Here's what I was talking about. Here's the living water. And by the way, not just a living water, but here's a new beginning. Here's a freshness. Because didn't he say with freshness, it's going to bubble up inside of you? See, here's a newness, a freshness, something you don't have to go back to every day. Because my mercies are new every morning. And you're going to have some joy and the peace and the love and the happiness. And everything that you're searching for, it's already found in me. And she said, well, you must be a prophet. A little bit. Something like that. Imagine just rolling his eyes. Something like that. And they get into it, and she says, well, I know a Messiah is coming. He said, I am the Messiah. Jehovah Jireh, your provider. I am everything that you need. I am that wholeness that you're searching for. And her response is exactly how the response he desires for us. He said, She goes into town, and I can just see now she's running around saying, he set me free. He set me free. You got to come and see him. What he did for me, he can do for you. He set me free of my dependency on that well. He set me free of that water. He set me free of that sin. He set me free. Come and see him. Come and look at him. Come and see. If he did it for me, he can do it for you. You got to see him. You got to see what he's done. See, when Jesus has done something in your life, we got to get so excited, so passionate about it, that we're pointing everybody to him. But we get to this point where we look just like the world because we're drawn from the same well as the world. And you can keep drawing from it and keep being thirsty. And you can keep going back to it. And you can blame God all you want. But he's standing here saying, well, I have a living water. Can we stop looking at God and say, well, you know what? You don't have a bucket for my need. While he's sitting here, no, look, you don't understand that I have this for you. And my hand is out. It's open. It's waiting for you just to say, here I am. To say, I want it. I desire it. We got to make a decision to stop saying, well, God, I got to make it on my own. I got to do it on my own. And I got to fulfill it on my own. And look, Christian, it might not be something crazy, but what is it that you're hiding in your heart? What is it that you've tucked away in the corner where you're too scared to let them see it? What are those things? So I don't care if it's this massive sin that we did, that for some reason we think it's greater than another sin, or if it's something small. We still look at them the same and say, well, you don't even have a bucket. And we got to do it on our own. See, I don't want to have a church. I don't want to see a church that has to do it on their own when Jesus has already paid for it. Man, if my dinner's paid for, I'm gonna eat that dinner. I'm not going to look at it and say, well, I don't really know if that's dinner for me. Or I don't know how that got in front of me, but I'm not touching it. I've never sat at dinner with someone who said they're paying. Be like, well, I can't even read the menu. Even if I can't read the menu, I'm going to ask, oh, well, what do you like? Because I want something that's paid for. Why do we do that with God? We sit down at the table. Well, I don't know how they're going to cook this meal that's on the menu that's promised they have it. I just don't know how it could ever get out to the table to me. I've never been to dinner like that and sit there and have a mind block and say, well, I don't know how it's going to happen, so I guess I'll just go to McDonald's instead because I'm hungry. But don't we do that? We sit at the table with Christ and he said, well, here it is, and here's what I offered you, and just order it, just take it. I said, well, I don't know how it's going to come out, so I'm hungry. McDonald's is around the corner. I'll grab that. Why? I believe that the only reason we can say why is we fail to identify with who he really is. That he is your provider. He has promised you the ability to draw from those wells. My challenge to you this morning is, can we stop looking at Jesus and say, well, that little attitude, well, you don't even have a bucket. What? Really? The one that formed the earth? Formed you, can't get you another $1 an hour in the middle of the week so you don't have to give up a Sunday and honor him? He can't? Or maybe he can't erase one of your bills so you can still take the same amount of money? Like, why do we look at it like, oh, well, I got to have another $1? Why can't we allow him to do what he's promised he's going to do so we can continue to honor him? God's never going to put you in a place where you cannot honor him. If you honor him, he's going to unlock things so you can continue to do so. He's not going to take you out of things. He's going to excel you in them. This morning, I'm going to end a little bit different than I normally do. Normally, I get people out of their seats, and we're going to lay hands on you. But you know what? I believe that this is a personal thing between you and Christ. And we can have someone play something beautiful.